Lucas Campbell was not a man who often thought about his future. Life in a small town went on as usual. Work at a factory provided a steady income, and time with friends at a local bar filled the evenings. Everything was simple and clear, until one day, walking home late at night, he saw a strange figure on the side of the road. A dark-haired woman stood in the shadow of the trees, and her clothes seemed to be from another era. Lucas stopped, and a strange chill enveloped him as soon as their eyes met. The woman stepped forward, and Lucas noticed her empty eyes black, without a single glimmer of light. He felt something inside him shrink with fear, but he could not move. The woman silently pointed at him, and in that moment everything around him changed. The world he was in turned into a desert landscape. The sky was blood red, the sun seemed to hang too low on the horizon, and not a single soul around. A thick, sticky silence filled the space. Lucas looked at his hands. They were darker than usual, as if they were shrouded in shadow. He looked around, and only then realized that he was alone. The houses had disappeared, the trees had turned into dark silhouettes resembling rotten bones, and ahead was only an endless horizon. Lucas felt that time did not move here. Each step was an effort, as if something invisible was pulling him back. The path led him to a lonely hill, on top of which stood an old tower. It looked as if it had been built thousands of years ago, and its stones were covered with strange symbols that Lucas could not read, but felt their ancient power. On the way to the tower, he met strange creatures, whose shadows merged with the darkness. They did not speak, but moved next to him, like silent guards. They watched him, but did not attack, and yet their presence made Lucas's heart clench with uncertainty. When he finally reached the tower, the woman appeared before him. She stood at the foot of it, waiting for him. She looked even stranger now, her face hidden by a hood, but her hands were thin and pale, like those of a dead person. "You came," she said quietly, her voice like a whisper on the wind. "Where am I?" Lucas asked, feeling his voice tremble with fear. "In the world between yours and the next. This day is not your reality, but what could become your future if you do not find the answers to your questions?" She pointed to the door of the tower, and Lucas, having no choice, stepped forward. It was pitch black inside, and the air was thick and musty. Stones crunched underfoot, and the walls of the tower were covered with the same symbols he had seen outside. The inside was as empty as the outside, but in the very center of the room there was a table with a book on it. It looked ancient, with a leather cover and metal clasps. Lucas walked slowly toward it and opened the first page. There was a photograph of himself. He was young, happy, surrounded by friends and family. Each subsequent page showed fragments of his life school, his first date, his job at the factory. This was his story, but it went further, to where he could not look under normal circumstances. Then there were pages he did not remember. They showed events that had not yet happened, losses, loneliness, the destruction of what was dear to him. And on each page the same hooded woman appeared next to him, an inescapable witness to his fate. On the last page he saw himself on the same hill, standing in front of the tower, but now his body was just a shadow, blurring against the red sky. Lucas closed the book, his heart beating so fast it felt like it was about to jump out of his chest. He turned to the woman. "What does this mean? Why are you showing me this?" His voice was hoarse and weak. "This is your shadow, Lucas. Each of us carries our own shadow, our own future, which we create ourselves, step by step, but not everyone has the chance to look into it." She stepped closer to him, and now her face was clearly visible. It was the face of an old woman, exhausted and lifeless, but her eyes shone with an unnatural light. "You can change your destiny, but only if you find the answer to the most important question: who will you become when your day comes?" Her words echoed in his head. Lucas suddenly realized that he no longer felt afraid. He knew that an opportunity lay before him. He could change what he saw if only he understood what his true essence was. "I don't know," he whispered. "I don't know the answer." The woman looked at him sadly, then slowly raised her hand and touched his forehead. In that moment, the world around him disappeared. Lucas woke up in his house, cold sweat running down his face, and her whispers still ringing in his ears. He was home, but something had changed. In the mirror, he saw his reflection older, with wrinkles on his forehead. His eyes were different now. There was something in them that he hadn't noticed before. He realized that his future had already changed. Now he knew that the time he considered his was just an illusion. And to save himself, he had Toba. He had to act differently. Every day became a struggle for him, every choice a step towards an answer. But the shadow was always there. It no longer followed him, but stood at a distance, watching his every move. He could no longer ignore what he had seen. And every day, when he woke up, he heard its voice, repeating the same thing: your shadow is closer than you think. Make a choice.